So no, this is not a flashback. It is actually just that cold today. 80s yesterday. It's 11 o'clock right now and it's still like 42. What's up everyone? Welcome back or welcome. This weekend we're going to try to knock out our spare tire mount. And we're gonna have to try to do it in one day because tomorrow's Easter and, well, our family likes to get together on Easter, so, well, we better get to work. All right, let me set y'all down on the Humvee. Stay, there you go. All right, so what we're starting with here, other than, well, we're just gonna use the same tubing that we used for the cage, but we did go ahead and order, I heard somebody walking up. We did go ahead and order a mounting plate, so these are already pre-drilled for where we actually need to mount to the wheel and tire there. And this just keeps me from having to drill everything out and then cutting out a plate that actually works through this. So we're gonna use this, we're gonna use some regular tubing we have left over, and then we're also going to probably get a little section of square tubing that'll hold this plate up just a little bit more so that that wheel overhang on it doesn't hit our tubing that's gonna go under. Well, I'm just gonna get into it and I'll show you. Well, remember I showed you all these back when we were doing, well, the back portion of the roof rack there. These were those smaller clamps that we're gonna use to hold that spare tire mount bars and everything up in place. Well, like I told y'all, we're not done with this. So my plan here is going to be actually create two pieces of tubing, probably a similar degree of bend here. And they're gonna actually come down off of that bar, come back, and then loop back in up into this bar. Then same over here. And then we're going to mount a plate on that, do our little spacer, and then mount our mount plate on top of that. So basically set it on top and bolt it in place so it'll be kind of cradled up there. But I'm gonna have to do some measuring, unlike before where we just did one bend and we did one bend and then we just cut it where we wanted it, basically made our width how we wanted it. This one we actually do have to know at what point we need to bend the rest of the tubing because we're just gonna do it one piece for that cradle portion. So I'm gonna pull stuff out here and we're gonna get to work. So like most people that are working with roll cage tubing will tell you, tip, trick, whatever you want to call it, go ahead and get a piece of scrap tubing. This was left over from before. I did a 90 degree, went ahead and marked every inch on here so I could tell where the bends are starting and everything. I ended up putting the little strap, holding strap, basically at the 1 inch, so I actually left an inch hanging off there just because I didn't want any issues with that not holding. And then it looks like it was about 15 marks later where my bend stops. I also did it on this side, just double checking it, and then I used that 90 and measured out exactly where I needed along here to start the bend. Are you gonna let me talk? No? Since I can't tell you all about that, let me show you the new family member. She just turned 13 weeks old, well actually today, and well, we got her out here trying to get used to me working in the shop without actually letting her get into any trouble. All right, now that she's back to laying down over there. So we went ahead and did our other 90 degree bend there. So how I ended up getting that, I ended up doing this side. I just came down a few inches, it doesn't really matter. I ended up starting at 5, but I actually could have started a lot further up. So we did all the way to our 15. I basically laid this up against a straight piece. Used a piece of straight pipe there to keep it off the ground so that everything kind of stays squared up a little bit. But basically squared up the base so that that long piece here actually goes straight with this piece. So I basically kind of had it set up like that, with that piece just keep going. Measured between here at whatever height I wanted it, and so it actually is about that height from there. That's where I'll probably be cutting off there. We won't quite have 90 degrees, but that's not gonna matter. So once I did that, where I put that tape measure where I wanted it on the height all the way down, I know what my width is here that I needed. found that by sliding this along, and then I basically just marked this mark, which is the end of our bend. That mark ended up being right here. I was about 1/3 of an inch in. So then I counted my 15 out, marked my other one, which would be the start of our bend, and then that way the end of our bend ends up about right here. Now that that one's all bent up, I am going to get, well actually I'll probably just use this one that I have out, clean that up, do the same thing where I mark all the way down the tubing, go ahead and do my 90-degree bend like I did there, and then do the same thing, mark where I need to mark. Luckily, with doing it this way, I can actually just count from that bend over here, and then once I know where that is on this other tubing, I will count over however many to match this one, do the same thing there, mark there, bend that other side, and I should have basically 2 identical pieces there. So you're gonna wanna make sure you clean this tubing first, or your Sharpie's not gonna write. All right, well, 2 identical, near identical pieces, because this one I started only 1 inch off that side, and that one I did like 5, so whatever. The bends are all identical. All right, well, we got both of those cut the same, and then I went ahead and cut, nope, don't fall. Went ahead and cut a 2 by 6, yeah, thing. Went ahead and cut a 2 by 6 in half, and then I went ahead and kind of notched the edges there so those will actually sit on there. I can weld them on. Now that those are kind of trimmed up to what height or depth I kind of want them, we're going to look at going ahead and putting our little clamps in place so that we can put these other bars up there and basically notch them, tack those in place. Because it needs to fit in here, we're just gonna kind of build it on here. So I guess I need to crawl on the back of this tall thing. All right, I've hopped in and out of this thing multiple times now because we were getting up our pieces in place, notching our ends so that they'll fit our mounts up there. All right, so I went ahead and tacked this up in place. Now I put all of these, basically jig this up to where everything's square. Went ahead and tacked it in place. Now the benefit of keeping everything square up here, I know that that distance back is the same as that distance back, so that's all square, which means this little piece that I'm working on here, just make it square and it'll fit in here too. All right, we got it tacked in place on our clamps. Now I just used a couple of ratchet straps to go around the bars underneath over to the other bar, and then just kind of ratcheted it, winched it up in place, moved it around just a little bit, went ahead and tacked it in place, and I think we're ready to drop it down now and just fully weld up everything. And then we'll work on our little mounting plate that comes off there. All right, so after wearing down that puppy's energy just enough, she's gonna take a nap, so that means now we get to go back out here and try to finish this thing up. Everything seems to take just a little bit longer messing with this puppy and trying to get things done. So I did put in some little bracing there, just to help out a little bit, a little extra protection on it. But I also came out and tried to put our little square tubing and a plate up top, and then I tried to put our spare on top of it, and well, it didn't quite sit on there. It was sitting on the tubing. So I looked for more square tubing that was a little bit longer, didn't find any, so we're just gonna go with this. Is still pretty thick. I think this is 1/8 inch wall, so it'll do just fine. It's going to be like that. Now I've already set the wheel and tire on here, and this is just at the right height to where we have maybe like a 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 inch between the tire and the tubing. So that's going to work pretty well. So now basically I am going to try to center that plate on that tubing, make sure everything's square, tack that up, and then, well, we're going to mount the wheel on. Well, at least set it on in place, probably put a couple bolts through. I just want to make sure we're even, everything sits even so it doesn't kind of look awkward as we're driving down the road. I want it to be as even side to side or front to back as it can be. Well, that wheel and tire definitely make that thing look small, but that's basically how it's going to sit on there. One thing I didn't like about this mount plate is they actually didn't drill the holes quite big enough, so I ended up having to drill out the 3. Now it only works on 3 holes. This will not bolt up for all of them. And as you can see, that hole there corresponds with these other 2 holes there, and those are actually a different size. So mine are going to be this one and these 2, and that'll be my mount. Of course, now I have to get that up there, but I also need to get this painted. So I'm going to take this wheel and tire back off here, prep it for paint, get everything ready on the actual mount, and then we'll mount stuff up. Well, there we go. We got it up in there and got it actually bolted down a little bit. I still need to, as you could see, still need to run that bolt up through and put a lug nut on that one as well. But it's sitting pretty good. Everything's pretty level on it. As you can see, our front actually sits a little bit high compared to the back. That could be because that plate maybe wasn't too square, but I don't mind that at all. It sits just fine. It sits just up enough on both the front and the back that it's not laying on those bars or squeezing that tire any. Yeah, so there we go.